As you can see, just 2 sticks and a rope can do a lot of work out here. Very little effort is involved. We're not breathing hard, we're not busy, we're not exhausted, and yet we can pull it right out of the ground. These roots are still fresh in the ground and they've been ripped right out. Imagine one of your vehicles gets stuck in the mud and you're out in the middle of nowhere. Or perhaps you've been staying at a base camp for a while but you need to adjust logs and get them out of the way for landscaping of your shelters. There's a lot of things that happen out there where one person with their own strength is very difficult to do a lot of the heavy lifting or heavy moving. However, there's tricks out there, and one of them we're going to show you today involves just a strong rope and strong poles, just 2, to move anything, such as a stump like this. Now there's several things that are going to be needed. Obviously you need something that needs to be moved. You're going to need an object that's immovable, such as a large rock or a tree. The last 2 items you're going to need is a strong rope. You can use any rope that's just strong enough for the task at hand. Parachute cord that's 550-pound test could easily move a log like this. We're going to be using this simple rope here. For a large vehicle I would suggest something along the lines of mountain climbing rope, rock climbing rope, or even large straps you can keep in the back of your vehicle for emergencies. The final objects you're going to need are 2 poles, preferably the same length. And the longer they are, the more leverage you're going to have involved. The most important part to it to me is that they have to be strong enough for the task. Use too small of a stick, it'll break. If it's too dead or rotted, it'll break. I like to use sturdy, dry, dead wood or fresh, green, thick saplings. That way they last for the entire operation. Now, there's a lot of ways you can tie a log like this. A lot of slippery hitches and other varieties of hitches out there are very good. I like the timber hitch personally because it grabs into the wood very well. What you're going to do is you're going to have all your loose ends of the cords over there and your simple end here. You're going to bring it around and you're just going to twist it around itself. Once, twice, 3 times at least. I like to go up to 5 times if possible. What happens is when that cinches, friction holds it in place. It won't come undone. Now on the other end, you're going to find an immovable object like this tree here. You're going to wrap your rope around, keeping it slack, that way you can put the winch inside. On this side you don't need to have too much strength, so I'll go with a simple slippery hitch. Tighten it, and we're good. Now you got the 2 poles and you got that slack line. This is why we need it slack down here. What you're going to do, you're going to take 1 pole and lay it along the rope, in line with it, parallel. You're going to take the other one, and place it perpendicular to the rope. Now the trick is, the one that's parallel with the rope has to be on the bottom. The top one goes perpendicular. Now this is a little weaving trick, which is why it needs to be slack. You're going to rest this on the top of the perpendicular one on this side, not on the short end. Drape it underneath the parallel one, and then bring it back over on this end of the perpendicular one. Now with all the rest of the slack line, you simply drape it underneath and let it go on its way to your other item. Now the biggest trick what's going to be happening here is trying to keep the ropes in line, so you've got to keep an eye on them. What you're going to do is you're going to grab the parallel one that's going parallel to the rope, you're going to lift it and flip it. Now what you do is reach the perpendicular one, lift it, and flop it. When that happens, you have to adjust to keep those ropes in line. This is known as the flip-flop winch. That's why it's called a flip and flop. So again, I grab the parallel one, I flip, I grasp the perpendicular one, and I flop. You can see it's starting to bunch up rope here and here. When it's slack, it's easier to do this. Adjusting the ropes to keep them nice and lined up keeps it from sliding off too easily. So I flip, and I flop. And again, adjust to make sure they stay on the right sides. Now notice how the ropes have lost all their slackness. They're starting to get real tight. We're going to continue to flip and flop, and as we go along we'll show you our results. As you can see, just 2 sticks and a rope can do a lot of work out here. Very little effort is involved. We're not breathing hard, we're not busy, we're not exhausted, and yet we can pull it right out of the ground. These roots were still fresh in the ground and they've been ripped right out. Barely any effort. You can see the amount of soil that's been turned up from it. And these are the results of knowing what to do in the woods. And the strong enough poles, 2 poles is all that's needed. You can pull anything with just 2 sticks. Let's try to get him rambling. You got me deadwood.